What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's midweek update. We've got so much to talk about today. Massive rotation, starting to see some better setups. Don't over leverage. We'll talk about progressive exposure too. Let's start right here on the Russell. So, this all started to happen last week. uh, the big rotation happened out of the large caps, the mega caps, and into the small and mid caps last week. You see it right here on the Russell 2000. This looks like a stock chart, right? But when you come over and look at this, this is actually the Russell 2000, and it's up. It moved about 11% in the span of a week. Insane move. If you were trading TNA, you're up about 30% in a week. I actually had a small position in TNA that was in my daughter's account. Had that for a little while. Didn't really talk about it too much, but that was in her account. I sold it into strength. I sold it into strength yesterday because this is not sustainable for an index. Does that mean that it's done? No, 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 absolutely not. But when you have this much meat on the bone, it's important to take profits and take profits when and how you can. So let's take a look at some of the other things that are going on. Well, we've got the Russell 2000 here. I want to share with you the Nasdaq. I want to share with you uh, the the IBD 50 mega caps, all those things. And while I'm switching the screens, let me know if you want to stick with this vertical landscape. I'm thinking of sticking with this vertical landscape, but I want to hear your opinion. Do you prefer this? Or do you prefer me to do the landscape version? And if you prefer the landscape version, then yeah, let me know. I'll take a poll from everybody. Right, so we're streaming to Facebook and LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. You guys are the main reason why we're doing this vertical, because you can't really go live with the landscape. But do let me know what your preference is. I know some people watch on mobile phones. Uh, let me know. Anyhow, type in the chat, let me know, and post your questions as we go. We've got somebody over here. Caleb says landscape, so my whole screen is used. All right. One vote for landscape. Let's see what other people have to say. Keep putting your thoughts in the comments. Thank you, Caleb. All right, so let's hop on over and take a look at what the Nasdaq is doing. And well, we basically called this a while ago. Not calling it from the perspective of, oh yeah, projections, right? So it's really more about knowing when and where to hop on and off the bus, right? That's what I know to do. I don't know. I don't predict any of this stuff. I'm just good at figuring out when I should hop on the bus and when I should hop off the bus. And when the bus looks like it's going to hop off a cliff, that's when I like to get off of these things. Anyhow, so Nasdaq has been running for a fairly long time. It started to consolidate, and yeah, it's been holding this line here, that purple line, you see that there? That's the 21 period exponential moving average. So it's been trading above that since way back here, since May 31st, right? So you had all of June, half of July. It's due to test that level. And just because it's testing a level, that doesn't mean that there can't or won't be pockets of strength. Just like how we've seen so much money flow into the Russell and the small caps and the mid caps. Some of the names that we're in, we've been talking about. If you're on our free newsletter, right? The link looks like it's that way. Marawealth.com/newsletter. We've mentioned plenty of these inside the newsletter, right? So I know we mentioned over the weekend AMSC. Here's one that I just started a position in today. If you're in our research program, you know all about this one here with on. Let me just get some of this other stuff out of the way. It is difficult to maneuver around the screen when it looks like this. So I'm thinking that I might do landscape and just do exclusively landscape, and for you guys over on Instagram, maybe send you a link or something like that. But this is basically what on looks like, starting to break out of this cheat area in a cup. Strong volume on the move, pushing through the pivot. Strong volume on the day. So many things that I like when I see this kind of stuff. And that's part of what we talk about in the free newsletter. It's part of what we go a lot deeper in the research program. Um, there's still plenty of opportunities that are being made right now. In fact, I also want to share with you this spreadsheet here. So let me switch up the screens. And by the way, while I'm doing this, get any questions that you have in. But yeah, let's switch this up over here. All right. So one of the things that I track every single day, you can see that I've been tracking it on this specific spreadsheet for years, is uh, market trends, what setups are doing, what stocks are doing, and I get a lot of insight from that, right? So here's what is happening right now as far as the stocks that I'm interested in. So you see this here, trade grades. So I will screen the market for stocks. Yesterday, we did a whole live stream about how to filter the market. If you missed that, go check it out. The recording's up on YouTube. But I'll filter the market into just the stocks that have extremely strong sales, extremely strong earnings. Why? Because those are the kinds of things that tend to propel stocks high, right? It makes for a better fishing pond, right? I want to fish where the fish are biting, and the ones that have great earnings and sales, those tend to be the ones that have the bigger moves. So I like to just focus on those. So I narrow the market down, and then I'll see which ones are setting up in the patterns that I'm interested in. And depending on what kinds of patterns I find, I'm able to see, oh, there's some really good stuff setting up, or, you know what, this one, not so great. I think I'll pass. Well, starting to see more set up, right? Starting to see some A-level setups. There's still B and C. Starting yesterday, there's 24 names on the focus list. That's decent. From the weekend, there were 71 stocks that were setting up in some kind of a pattern, and not just some kind of a pattern like it's random, right? The patterns that I personally like to see. And I have a model book, and the model book is in this spreadsheet too. But of the ones that were setting up, there were 71 of them, and 83% of them so far have made gains on the week. So that's telling me that not only are there a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of opportunities that are actually performing. If we pop over to the setup list to give you an example, right? So here's the setup list for the week. Here's how they're doing, right? So some of them not doing so great, but then over here, right? Let's collapse this list. So that way you just have the tickers and the performance, right? So a couple in there, up and down. SMCI, I want to take a look at that one later. Writing that one down. SMCI. Right? That's an example of the big caps, right? So some big caps were starting to set up a little bit. I didn't like that setup, didn't take it. That's what happened, but I don't want to start. That's not what we're trying to do here, right? There's plenty that are moving well, right? On spoke about that one earlier. Cores, some pretty hefty movers here. Zeta, one of our members is in Zeta. He pointed that one out. Great job, Anthony. Hood, that one was spoken about in our Discord as well. I believe Alberto brought that one up. Yeah, here's another one. Here's another large cap. Elf, right down 16%. Add that one to the list of the mega caps to go through, and why you also want to have a level of discernment with which stocks you're going to trade. Just because it's on a watch list doesn't mean that you should buy it. You've got to be able to figure out which ones are strong setups, which ones are garbage, right? So let's go back over to the charts and take a look. All right, Caleb, you're switching your vote over to the portrait mode. All right, great. So we'll keep doing the portrait mode then. Need to get some other people voting in here. Your party of one. So let's take a look at some of these mega caps and what they were doing. Right here's Meta. The thing that we need to know is when to hop on the bus, when to hop off the bus. This was setting up last week. Actually traded this, right? This popped out over here. It moved sideways for a bit. I raised my stop to break even. Then I'm taken out on this day. And then what happens? It keeps on falling. You need to know when to get on the bus, when to get off the bus. Just because you get on a bus, it doesn't mean that it's going to take you to your destination. Sometimes these buses break down. You need to know when to hop off. Here's another one. Netflix, right? I was in this one too, right? Mega caps setting up a couple of weeks ago, started to look good, broke out over here. Okay, volume was up relative to the past couple of days there. Started to trade sideways, raise the stop, out on this day, and then it's been falling since. Know when to get off the bus. We mentioned SMCI. This one was setting up over the weekend. A lot of people have had their eye on this one. Now, let's reset the chart, make it look a little better here, hopefully. So this was setting up for a little while, right? If we zoom out, it had this whole big consolidation in here. Everybody knows all about SMCI. It had this massive run at the beginning of the year, a couple of 100%, and then it's finally getting to a point where, oh, it's getting nice and tight. Let's try to hop on board here. We talked about this one over the weekend. I spoke about this one with our research members. The thing that I didn't like about it, there were pluses and minuses. Give you the pluses first. The pluses, tight consolidation right in there. About 7% between where you might enter and where you might place your stop. That's decent. It's decent. It's decent for this one because it tends to trade about that much per day. Also, the layers of support that it had around the stop area were fairly decent at the time. It had a whole bunch of moving averages, all the short-term ones, the 5, the 10, the 21. It had the 50-day moving average there. I believe it had the 10-week line also. It was looking decent. However, what didn't look good was that you have this descending trend line coming down, right? And I'm not a huge advocate of trend lines, but when they work, they work. And when they are presenting a near-term area of resistance, it makes me pause a little bit. It makes me pause because I'm not going to be the only one that sees these things. So if price were to break out from here, the next spot for it to get over would be that resistance line. Obviously, that played out. I didn't know that it would play out that way to the penny, but that's how it played out. But when I'm thinking about it over the weekend back here, part of what's going through my head is, okay, I'm going to enter and take a 7% risk potentially if I were to take this trade. If price gets to the first layer of resistance that's only 3.5% away. What if it fails? Then I'm basically risking 7% to make 3.5. Doesn't make sense. I want my upside to be a lot higher than that. So that's why on this one I passed. And it's like, you know what? I'll give this one some more time. If it breaks out here, then I'd much rather uh, miss this, let it consolidate up here when it gets to this higher level resistance, because there's still resistance about 10%, right? So you're still only getting a little bit more than a 1-to-1. Wait, let it consolidate up here and then get in, but didn't have to see any of that stuff play out because right now it's broken down and it obviously needs more time. Let me know if there's any stocks that you guys specifically want to talk about on here. I want to make sure that there's plenty of time for questions. So let's come back over here. There's a lot of people hopping in over on Instagram over here. Welcome everybody. I see Abhishek, Mohit, Dado, Dominic. Welcome everybody. Somebody says, what is GCD? I have no idea what GCD is. You're going to have to tell me. Selby asked a general question about what am I trading. So I like to trade growth stocks. I like to trade growth stocks because they tend to have a lot of momentum. I will trade growth stocks that most of them tend to be in the mid caps. Most of them tend to have very good earnings and sales. So earnings and sales that are above 50% quarter over quarter. Many of them have accelerating earnings and sales quarter over quarter, and or right. It's not where it has to be both. Most of the time you don't have both, but oftentimes they do. Earlier, what was it? Maybe a couple of weeks ago, traded it Nvidia for this monster gain. Right, we're in this move for the bulk of it, and out fairly close to the top. I did not trade this pullback at all. I think that Nvidia needs more time. I thought that Nvidia needed more time back here. And because even though this is a pullback, it's still very choppy. We need to use discernment. We need to learn discernment. One of the things that we teach in the research program is discernment. I share my model book, right? I'll show you the model book. All right, so switch back over to the spreadsheet. Let's pull up the model book. All right, so here's the model book, and you could create one of these too. In fact, I encourage you to create your own model book. It's fairly it'll take you some time, but it's fairly straightforward. All it means is that you're defining your setup, right? And that does not mean that you need to come up with it from scratch. Every setup that I have was somebody else's first. So the cup with handle, that's O'Neill. Pullbacks, right? I got that from one of our other coaches in the program, Stu. Volatility contraction patterns, that's from Mark Minervini. A flat base, that's from O'Neill. So I'll go and I'll study their work, right? Because they've already gone out and proven that something works. So I take a look at their body of work and then I see, okay, show me examples. How did this work? And then I'll study their research and start with O'Neill, right? Because O'Neill's research goes back to the 1880s. I studied that, and then it's like, okay, let's see some real patterns or not real patterns, but more current patterns, and then see how it works. And then that's how I prove to myself that, oh, you know what? This is how it actually works. Then I can see how I trade these things. And so that's where I start to lay out, okay, here's how long something should be, here's the depth of it, here's the general look and character, here's where it should be placed in a trend, here's the market type that it should have, here's things that take it from good to great, and then here's a whole bunch of different models for that particular setup. And so if I were to click on one of these, you could start to see, well, oh, well, when he's talking about a pullback, it looks like this. But it's not only that. Sometimes it could look like this. Or sometimes it could look like this. So that's why you want to have multiple types of setups, uh, or multiple models for each type of setup, because there will be some variation to how the patterns form, and it's on us to know, well, which ones are good and which ones aren't, and what makes a quality setup versus what doesn't. And it takes time to it takes practice, it takes practicing well to figure these kinds of things out. Keep it simple. Do you buy from an IPO base? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So let's switch over, uh, because I just bought an IPO base. Is that the right screen? No, that's not the right screen. Let's come back over to this one. And RBRK. So this is an IPO base that I recently bought from. And let's hop on over to a weekly chart so that way you could see the whole thing in the screen. Or at least most of it. All right, so this one IPO'd back in April. And a lot of people will think that an IPO base needs to be bought in, or that the IPO base is the first week or two of an IPO. No, it's just the first base that it forms after the IPO. Sometimes it could be within a week or two, sometimes it could be within a couple of months. So this here was consolidating, and then it started to make the U-turn, and then it popped above its 50-day moving average, and then it started to break out this week. And so that's one of the things that prompted me to buy it. I'll zoom back over to the daily chart because that'll give you some more insights into what I'm actually doing with this one and what I saw. So I also saw the descending trend line again. Again, I don't love descending trend lines, but when they're there and they're all pointing to the same spots that I found earlier, it adds a layer of confluence. So here, this was back when I bought it, or before I bought it. So this was Thursday of last week. Here's Friday. So it's setting up this pivot right around $34.20. And what was also lining up right at that level too was the anchored VWAP. That's that blue line. You have the descending trend line. That's also slicing through that area. And price had just gotten above the 50-day moving average. And so that was last week's high. So there's a whole bunch of stuff all pointing at the same level. So that's what's getting me into this. And I also noticed that many of the cybersecurity names still look good. I was already in CyberArk, and this one was a new name in the group, and it was setting up well. So that's why I decided to buy that. And so far, it's just kind of futzing around the pivot. We'll see what happens here. It's actually, depending on how it closes today, right? Like right now, it looks pretty good. Anything can happen by the end of the day. We still have plenty of the trading day left, so I'm not going to count my chickens before they're hatched. But if it looks like this by the end of the day, it's giving me a great spot to raise my stop loss. I would put it probably just under today's low or perhaps a little bit lower. But to answer the question, yes, I do buy from an IPO base. What are the questions you guys have? Go back to Instagram and see what else is going on over there. Yeah, you guys watching over on YouTube. Yeah, keep it simple and Caleb over on YouTube. And we've got a few other people over there too. Some of you guys are being quiet, but that's okay. Selbia, that was RBRK. Rubric. It's an IPO. Sonny gave some insight. GAN code decoder, GCD. Yeah, I still, that's not something that I use. It's not something that I'm familiar with. So sorry, I can't give much comment on it. Keep it simple. Your book has been tremendously helping me in my trading journey. Oh, that's great to hear. Well, let's put that comment up on the screen. I am also checking all the videos and past stream on your channel. I just want to thank you and appreciate your work. Oh, you're very welcome. So, Keep It Simple is talking about the Trading Mind Wheel book that's available over on Amazon. Go get yourself a copy of that. All right. Well, what other questions do we have? We have 2 more minutes here before I need to wrap things up. I have a call that I need to hop on. Going once. Going twice. See, I'm just going to go through my list here and make sure that we covered everything that we needed to cover. So we spoke about the massive rotation. We spoke about the NASDAQ pulling in. We spoke about the mega caps pulling in. Netflix, Meta, SMCI. There's a few others on this list. Amazon. I bring up Amazon. Yeah, Amazon's pulling back in pretty hard. Then we've got Elf dropping like a stone. So you can see how these larger names all pulling back simultaneously. Yeah, there's so Sonny, there's all different kinds of rotation. The way that I like to look at rotation, and it helps be very simple, is to follow what's actually setting up. Follow the stocks themselves. So I'll break it down. I'll look at sectors. I'll look at market cap. I'll look at group ranks, and I'll see what's setting up and how the market is treating those stocks that are setting up, right? Because if they're consolidating, it's going to do one of two things, or really three things, right? It could either keep on consolidating, it could break out, or it could break down. And that's telling me how the market is treating those kinds of names. And that's why I'm able to avoid this, because I'm able to see, oh, it's not just Netflix, it's not just Meta, it's almost all of them that are pulling back in. We also spoke about not over leveraging, using progressive exposure. Very important concepts there. So if you want more, make sure that you are signed up to the newsletter. The newsletter is right over there, marawealth.com/newsletter. Get on the newsletter. There's going to be some more content coming out this afternoon. Make sure that you get it. And I will see you all next time. Take care. Much love and God bless.